Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
You don't have to be an expert to go to Point Reyes and look at the land and see that the land is completely degraded where the cattle grazing operations are. The land is completely barren, and there's so much compaction on the soil that it also increases erosion.
The Betrayal of Point Reyes, an environmental travesty, a plea to protect precious habitats. Part 1 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
No to vegan, 'cause you worship Satan, but he will reward you by roasting you in a hellfire.
Kafkum means how are you in South Sudanese Arabic. I'm Emmanuel. The friendly people of South Sudan thank you for bringing positive energy to our world with your bright personality. Thoughtful viewers, welcome to part 1 of our 2-part series, The Betrayal of Point Reyes, an environmental travesty, a plea to protect precious habitats. Point Reyes National Seashore is a magnificent national park located approximately 48 kilometers or 30 miles north of San Francisco, California, USA. Encompassing 28,000 hectares or 70,000 acres of coastal wilderness, wetlands, forests, meadows, and beaches, the park provides an ideal habitat for a remarkable variety of flora and fauna people, including 50 rare or endangered species of the animal kingdom people and dozens of endangered plants. The most highly prized animal people in the park are the people from the Tule elk kingdom, a rare indigenous subspecies found only in California. By the late 1800s, the Tule elk people had been hunted almost to extinction. Fortunately, a handful of them were saved, and in 1978, 10 precious Tule elk people were reintroduced to Point Reyes in the hopes that the people of the Tule elk kingdom would once again flourish there. However, events are occurring within Point Reyes that threaten the lives of the Tule elk people. Park authorities are allowing several cattle people ranches and factory farms to operate within the park, and 1/3 of the park's land has been set aside for their use. Not only are these so-called ranches destroying the environment, but they are also threatening the lives of the wild animal people kingdom, especially the delicate Tule elk people. How did this abhorrent situation come about? It began in 1962 when Point Reyes Seashore National Park was established. At that time, several ranchers were operating on the lands. Not only were the ranchers paid generously for their land when the park was created, but they were also allowed to continue operating in the park for 25 years, giving them ample time to relocate. In spite of this, almost 60 years later, these ranches are still operating in Point Reyes. Even worse, park authorities are considering killing some of the Tule elk people to protect the ranchers' operations. Many people are deeply opposed to having factory farms on precious protected park lands. To raise awareness about this dire situation, award-winning filmmaker and photographer Tony Seagal produced a documentary film called The Betrayal of Point Reyes.
It's completely outrageous that a national park would choose to kill tule elk when their whole species is at such risk.
So I think it's time to let the elk do their work and restore this to what the mission of a national park should truly be. This is an embarrassment for the national park system.
Under federal law, when you have a federal park, it's required that there be an environmental impact report. In the existence of this park, we have never had one. It's in violation of federal law.
If the cattle ranchers would transition themselves away, they get to be heroes.
When I was doing the documentary and doing all the interviews, it really became apparent to me that there was a real betrayal going on. The land was purchased with tax dollars in 1962 for about $57 million, and 27 ranches were paid. And the intention was the land would be returned to a natural state. They were given 25-year leases, a time to transition, a very generous time to transition. But ever since then, the leases have been renewed in 5-year increments, and it's just gone on and on. It should have ended in 1987, but till today, they're still there. And so the betrayal there is that the ranches were supposed to leave. The National Park Service and the federal government has allowed them to stay. And our tax dollars paid for that land to be returned to a very natural setting, like any national park or national seashore in this case should be. And then also the fact that till this day, the National Park Service continues to greenwash what's going on. If you go to their website, there's no mention of impacts from the ranches and what's going on.
Many organizations have also been working diligently to raise awareness about this dire situation and have the factory farms removed. One such organization is For Elk, co-founded by Diana Oppenheim.
There's been a lot of work trying to get this topic on the map and get some public pressure so that the Park Service actually fulfills its legal requirement to protect the natural environment for future generations to the maximum extent possible. And we know legally that you cannot have commercial agriculture and the maximum protection of natural resources hand in hand. That's actually impossible to do. So what we're advocating is for the Park Service to fulfill its legal requirement and to protect its natural resources.
As I have said, all life is me, God. To destroy life is to attempt to destroy me, and it is not easy to destroy me. Teach that to human beings. A collection of divine messages, Volume 2, Caudaism.
We'll take a moment now to thank the divine for our national parks, which protect the habitat and lives of the wild animal people. We'll be back shortly. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to our program. One of Diana's primary concerns is the immense environmental damage that the factory farms are causing in the park.
You don't have to be an expert to go to Point Reyes and look at the land and see that the land is completely degraded where the cattle grazing operations are. The land is completely barren. There are about 6,000 cattle who graze the land in Point Reyes. And when you look at that land, not only is it complete monocultures of 4 or 5 different annual grasses that are planted, but they're trampled down to the bare soil. And there's so much compaction on the soil that it also increases erosion. So sometimes, especially in dry season, you'll look out and it's just dust everywhere, dirt everywhere. It's not healthy soil, it's dust. And the impacts of the soil compaction and the soil erosion seep outside of the pastoral area, because anytime it rains, all that silt and sediment goes directly into creeks and the streams. And sensitive marine habitat need clean water to, for example, spawn their eggs and have healthy fish habitat. So the salmon population is down. A lot of native plants in the marine ecosystems are having trouble because There's so much silt and sediment from the erosion coming from these farms.
Diana is also concerned about the effect of the manure coming from the factory farms on which thousands of innocent, helpless people of the cow kingdom are being forcibly raised.
Millions and millions of pounds of manure are going directly into the ground and directly into the creeks and streams, which also impact the environment and the ecosystems there. Point Reyes National Seashore has some of the worst water quality in the state of California. And I think this has been one of the most egregious and obvious mishaps of the National Park Service and these cattle ranchers. So there's about 6,000 cattle in the park, and they all poop. And there have been human-made poop storage ponds that have been built and constructed to contain some of this manure. So that sewage is sitting in the ground, and then trucks will come and pump it out, and they'll spray that manure all over the land. And that land is highly trampled, and the soil is very compact, and there's a lot of erosion that happens. So this manure is sprayed untreated all over our public lands, and then it goes directly into the creeks and the streams. There was an independent water hydrologist that came out in January and did an independent water quality test, and they found that there was about almost 40 times the amount of E. coli in the water as allowed for human health. There is about 300 times the amount of enterococci bacteria as allowed for human health in the water system. One of the ranches has been allowed to pump groundwater from sensitive wetland ecosystems to supplement their water needs for their cattle. So the water impacts are pretty big.
Tony is also deeply concerned about the devastating environmental damage caused by factory farming. In fact, it was his primary reason for shifting to a vegan lifestyle.
I started a plant-based vegan diet 5-6 years ago, largely because of environmental concerns I had. I had always considered myself to be an environmentalist. I majored in ecology in college, and wasn't until much later in my life through documentaries and listening to scientists talk about the impacts of animal agriculture in terms of water pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, habitat loss from growing the crops for the animals. This is all in addition to animal cruelty and health concerns. So I started doing more research into finding out about the impacts, and it was just kind of surprising to me how much land is used to grow the crops for animals that, are fed soybeans, corn. A vast majority of fish caught in the oceans are used to feed farm animals. So the impacts of animal agriculture are just tremendous. The amount of water required and the energy used and the pesticides used. So by going to a plant-based diet, I realized, cutting out all these inputs, all this land use required. And so it was really made a lot of sense for me.
Many thanks Diana and Tony for sharing this important information. We wish you much success in protecting the Tule elk people and the natural habitat in Point Reyes National Seashore. For more information on Tony Seagull and to watch the documentary The Betrayal of Point Reyes, please visit filmfreeway.com/Tony Seagull, youtube.com/C/Silver Reaction Media. For more information on Julie Phillips, please visit naturebasedteaching.com. For more information on Diana Oppenheim and 4ELK, please visit 4elk.org.
No to vegan, so the hungry demons can roast and devour you in hell. Exciting, isn't it?
Kind-hearted viewers, thank you for being with us today. Please join us again on Monday, January 3rd for the concluding episode in this series. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television for Dr. Quan Stewart, the street vet, after noteworthy news. Through the grace of the divine, may you and future generations of your family continue to enjoy the magnificent beauty of planet Earth.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/PE.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/PE.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/PE.
برامجنا متوفرة بالعديد من اللغات. يرجى زيارة suprememastertv.com/schedule و suprememastertv.com/PE.